The FBI has been after this young boy since he was 14 years old. This boy has broken into and taken homes, cars, boats, and even planes, even though he is not licensed to fly and has no idea how to do it. This boy has been arrested 67 times for crimes such as attacking police officers and taking their guns. This person is having a real-life Grand Theft Auto or GTA. The FBI has been after him for years, going from city to city and island to island, but they still haven't caught him. This story is crazy, but it's true, and you'll see for yourself what crazy things happen in it. As a teenager, Colton experienced a wild and chaotic life. He grew up in a bad home with a drug-addled mother and a father who left them without any money or bills. His mother was poor and had no interest in him, leading to him stealing food and drinks from shops and grocery stores. Colton was not very experienced, so he often got caught in youth prison centers, which were held over and secured. He was punished or grounded for school-related trouble, but his mom didn't care. At 14 years old, he kept up with these tasks and began to grow. He started breaking into people's homes, learned how to pick or break locks, and found out where people kept their extra keys. He would break into houses and steal food and drinks from the fridge, then sit on the couch to watch TV or play PlayStation. He would also go after empty homes where the owners were away on vacation or trips. Many of the homes on their island were vacation homes, meaning they only came to visit during the holidays. He would sometimes stay there for a few nights, changing clothes and taking showers as if the house were his own. Some of the houses had cars, so he borrowed one, drove it around, filled it up with gas, and cleaned it before returning it in perfect shape. He would bring the car back to the house in perfect shape. When done with the house, he would take everything valuable he could carry, including money, gold, laptops, PlayStations, and frozen food. Some people might wonder why he would put gas in the car, clean it up, and then go steal gold, money, and other things. But he believed he wasn't really hurting those people because the things inside the house were protected against theft. The story revolves around a man who steals from insurance companies and decides to stay moral. He stops going back to his mother's house and starts living on his own, either in homes he broke into or in a tent he set up in the middle of the woods. He returns to his tent at the end of the day with his loot, including money, credit cards, food, and everything else he needs. One of the strange places he sets his sights on is a fire station, where he plans to steal an infrared thermal imaging camera to ensure no one is home when he breaks in to steal something. He later gets night vision goggles, like the ones soldiers use, and pays thousands of dollars for them with a stolen credit card. The case continues for a few months, with Colton sleeping alone in a tent in the bush and stealing houses as he moves around the island. Many people tell the cops about these thefts, and the cops work on the case for a while and look for Colton. No one was able to find him. Through their research and records, they were able to figure out who he was. Colton had been caught multiple times, and his information, fingerprints, and a picture were all on file. Since he wasn't at school or his mum's house, they were able to connect these crimes to him. He was the main suspect from the start, but they couldn't find him, so they began passing out his picture. Colton moved from place to place on the island and broke into homes while living alone in his tent in the middle of the forest. The cops kept looking for Colton until they found him. Through their research and data, they were able to figure out who he was. Colton, a man who was wanted by everyone on the island, was known for his boldness and boldness. He stole credit cards and ordered items like bear spray to stay alive in the bush. His boldness led to his capture in the end. In 2007, when he was 15, he was caught in a youth prison for 21 crimes, receiving 4 years in jail. Colton was calm in jail and never got into trouble, unlike other prisoners. Colton was dedicated to following the jail rules and attending lessons and study groups for them. He wanted to get better and promised his bosses that he would return to school, try to get into college, and get a degree. They didn't know it, but everything they saw was just a show. If he behaved well, he would be moved to a detention center like the one mentioned before. After 10 months of good behavior in jail, he was moved to a holding center. In 2008, at 17 years old, Colton had no choice but to go back to his old life. He lived in a tent in the middle of the bush and would sometimes break into homes and shops to steal things. He even robbed a small bank once. Colton, and started to watch the Kakisen, Gorgi coach guards movements and tried to figure out how the place was protected. One night he quietly took his things, crept out, opened the window and got away from the prison center. There was no fence or wall around this center, so he could just jump out the window and land. He was free again. In 2008, Colton was 17 years old and had no choice but to go back to his old life. He went back to living in a tent in the bush and only went outside sometimes to break into homes and shops. He even robbed a small bank once, however it was still a bank, which meant that he was very fit and strong, allowing him to climb, break in and smash. One of the things he did was break into a shop that sold tools and equipment. He got in through a window on the second floor and went to the storage room to get the tools he needed. He used a metal stick to hit the safe over and over until it broke. There was a cash safe in the same room. The cops looked for him but couldn't find him. One night after dinner, he broke into one of the homes and found a powerful Mercedes racing car. He thought this was the nicest and most powerful car he had ever seen. A young islander named Colton stole from various shops and businesses, and cameras caught his prints everywhere. He was known by his friends as the Barefoot Thief because most security videos showed him without shoes on. People started calling him by this name, and fan pages were created for him on Facebook and YouTube. Other people wrote bad things about him on walls, leading to the creation of t-shirts and selling them. Colton's actions seemed to be having fun with his newfound fame. He broke into a grocery store, stole, and spoiled the goods, as normal. Before leaving, he took chalk and slowly drew footprints on the ground, as if he were okay with his fans calling him the Barefoot Thief. He later chose to leave the island because the cops and FBI were very hard after him, even watching him at local airports. The second time, he returned from the sea from Canada to the United States and started taking cars again. He didn't drive the same car for a long time and didn't fill up at gas stations as they had security cams that could be used to track him. He would drive the car until the gas ran out, then steal another one. He stole a plane and flew to a place in Washington called Granite Falls for the fourth time. When he got to this spot, he saw an empty field in front of him and chose to land there. He didn't see that the land had cut tree stumps on it, so he thought it was empty. However, when the plane was getting ready to land, he couldn't pull up again, and he had to land on the stumps. The plane hit the stumps and began to fall apart, but he lived through it without getting hurt badly after it stopped for the second time. Colton was lucky, brave, and lucky all at the same time. He got off the plane and went straight for the trees in the forest. This time, the area wasn't empty. A man who worked in wood was one of the people who saw the plane crash. When he got to the plane, it was already on the ground and no one was inside. The cops, FBI, and special forces showed up to search the area, setting up checkpoints to keep people out. A neighboring family reported seeing a strange person in the nearby bush, and the cops went to the spot. They found Colton hiding there, and they took away his belongings, including a bag full of cash, worth about $20,000, and a camera with pictures of him taking selfies. Law enforcement, the FBI, and special forces searched for him, but they were never able to find him again. A man was being chased and watched by people. He stole a plane for the 5th time, this time going to Orcas Island in Washington state. The landing was smooth and there were no damage to the plane. However, he stopped for a few months, possibly because he thought the chase was getting worse. Some people thought he had died or drowned, but he didn't let them down. People were shocked to see a big mark at the port on San Juan Island, where a handprint and one boat were missing. Clinton played to the part of a TV show and put on a show for his fans. After taking another boat from Lopez Island, he went back to Camano Island, where everyone hated him and would have killed him if they could. They got together to talk about stopping him, but Clinton didn't plan to stay on the island for long. He stole a car and left the island for another city. As soon as he got there, land roads link the islands to towns in Washington. He went from island to city in Washington, and at one point, they even got a letter with $100 at an animal rescue. The letter said, "I saw you and had some extra money," and below it, it said, "The Barefoot Bandit. At night, pilots would sit next to their planes." Clinton didn't even think about them and didn't stay on the island for long. He stole a car and left the island for another city. At one cat shelter, they found a letter with $100 in it, saying, "I passed by you and had some extra money. Please use it for taking care of the animals." The man didn't even try to hide where he was, saying, "Come catch me if you can." He went beyond Washington to learn more about America, stealing a car every time he moved from one state to the next. He stopped at several airports along the way to find the right plane. For thousands of kilometers across America, the police didn't know anything about him, so no one knew for sure where he was. It took him 300 kilometers, 9 states, and the theft of 11 cars to finally get to the airport and plane he wanted in a city. A man named Colton stole a car every time he moved from one state to the next, driving until it ran out of gas. He stopped at several airports along the way to find the right plane, taking 9 states, 3,200 kilometers, and 11 cars to get to an Indian city. He hid in trees next to the airport and watched from afar, waiting for the right time. When he got to the Bahamas, he circled the same area 4 or 5 times before landing the plane on soft, flat, and wet ground. The plane wasn't hurt too badly, and Colton went straight into the woods after getting off the plane. When the cops looked at the plane, they saw that it was American, so they told the American officials. The American government talked to the Bahamian government and confirmed that Colton had arrived in the Bahamas. Colton started by robbing a store and a diner, getting cash, food, and other items. He then hid in the woods and had fun swimming in the sea and visiting beautiful places. He stole a car and went to one of the island's big towns, where he watched the bay for a while. He followed one of the boat owners and took the boat key inside his car. He then ran to the harbor, jumped on the boat, ran it up, and left the area. In summary, Colton stole a car and drove across America, stopping at airports and airports to find the right plane. He stole a boat key, ran to the harbor, and left the area. In the story, a white man named Colton steals money, food, and other items from a nearby island in the Bahamas. He then goes to the beach to swim and enjoys the beautiful sights. He steals a car and leaves the island's big towns alone, following a boat owner leaving the port. He steals the boat key and runs to the harbor to steal it. He then goes to Eleuthera, another island in the Bahamas, hiding in the trees. His name and picture are all over the news, so he hides on the island for about a week. He chooses to steal a boat again because he is sick of the situation. He takes the boat out to sea and sailed for a while. As he sails the boat up to the harbor, he sped up the boat as if he was trying to show off for them. Two young men look at him and wonder what is wrong with the white guy acting so stupidly. He then moves closer to them and begins talking to them. One of the young men knows who he is right away, but he claims not to. The young man knows that Colton has a $10,000 reward on his head, so he wants the prize. His goal is to catch him, so he moves closer. The young man calls the cops and tells them to come after him because he wants to chase him and have fun with them. After his friend talks to Colton, the second guy calls one of their friends on the phone and asks him to come with them on their boat. The friend turns the boat around and leaves, and two guys watch him get into the boat and leave. The boat's owner friend shows up with a group of their friends, and they all jump into the boat and follow him. Suddenly, one of the young men pulls out a gun and raises it, making the boat driver blind. The boat driver loses his way and goes in a different direction, and the other boat quickly moves away from them. The boat owner sees the whole thing happen and believes he is just steering the boat. However, the other person is moving the boat around, and the guard watches as the people in the other boat follow the boy's boat. The guard thinks about getting the cops to help him. The story highlights the dangers of stealing money, food, and other items from a stranger, as well as the consequences of not being careful when attempting to steal. In this text, the protagonist Colton is seen driving a boat towards a harbor and is chased by a guard. The guard asks the person in front of the house who is trying to kill him, and Colton responds that they are trying to kill him. The guard then chases him into the grass and trees, eventually hiding in the trees around the house. The police chief calls the local police chief, who wakes up all officers, including those on duty and off duty, and surrounds the area. Colton sneaks through the woods and goes around the bay from the other side, eventually getting on a boat. The police, boat owners, and locals see the boat moving slowly and quietly with its lights off, and it suddenly leaves the bay. People quickly figure out what happened and call the cops, but their boats are not there. They get on two boats to chase Colton, and the chase starts. Colton was a long way ahead of them, and at one point his boat hits a shallow area coming out of the island that he wasn't aware of. His boat gets stuck in the sand, and he presses the pedal to run the engine, but the blades keep hitting the sand and the boat doesn't move. The cops get close enough to shoot him, and Colton raises his gun, points it at his head, and says he will shoot himself. The cops tell him to drop his gun, but Colton keeps yelling, "I will never go back." He tries to move the steering wheel of the boat out of the sand with his other hand, and then pushes the engine throttle all the way to the top. The cops open fire on him, aiming to hit the engine of the boat. They don't care if Colton gets hit. They see him as a dangerous thief who wouldn't give up. When the cops shoot Colton, he drops the gun, puts his hands on the steering wheel, and squats down to hide while yelling, "Surrender, surrender, that's it!" After making sure the boat couldn't move, the cops tell him to put up his hands, and he gives up. After 2.5 years of getting away, Colton is finally caught. He is taken back to the port, where people gather and take pictures of him. They managed to do something that neither American cops nor special forces could do. In these clips, Colton is taken by plane to the Bahamas for his sentencing. Colt, a 19-year-old guy, was caught in the Bahamas in 2010 for a number of crimes, such as theft, robbery, and stealing. He was sent to the US, where he was charged with over 67 crimes and could spend up to 30 years in jail. Joe Brown, his lawyer, was known for being able to keep even the worst convicts safe. Colt's case featured a well-known serial killer, and John, who was his lawyer, was the best person to keep him safe. John didn't try to fight the charges against him. Instead, he talked him into accepting all of them. He even skipped meals to make the judge and jury feel the same pain he did. The judge gave him a 7-year sentence after he talked to the jury. He was jailed for 5 years and then got out on release. Colt got out of jail when he was 25 years old and worked as an assistant for the lawyer who was protecting him. It can be hard to get a job if you have a bad record, so John was very helpful in getting him out. Colt's lawyer talked about how much he hated the person he used to be and how he wanted to stay away from that person as much as possible in interviews. He is now working on getting his life in order and is looking for chances to give talks and share what he has learned. A lot of people stole from Colt when he was a teenager, which makes him one of the strangest teens ever. He broke into banks, stole money, stolen cars, boats, and planes, and then got away from jail. He had a strange teen years and has a past of stealing, robbing, and getting away with things. In the end, Colt's story shows how hard it is for people with criminal records and how important it is to understand their situations and get help from lawyers. Colt's story shows how important it is to understand and help people with crime records who are having problems.